Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, this is Joe and Jay Outspoken, and this is Men's Edition. This is a special Men's Edition because of a couple things. Today is the 8th, and the 10th is World Mental Health Day. So really something that we wanted to kind of dig into, and there's been some, cool things happening on the internet, TikTok, and all that kind of good stuff lately with Mr. Steve Burns.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And Joe and I wanted to kind of dig deep into that and how that's kind of affected people. And our Men's Edition episodes have really been something that's been special to our hearts to get out there and get the message out. And anyhow, this has come along and just become a huge thing out there in the ether. So we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. All right. Well, here we go.
I'm Steve Burns, and I'm going to address the rumors about me. I did not die in a car accident. I did not die of an overdose. This is the worst Dr. Seuss book in history. I did not die of a terminal illness. The death rumors were at one point so persistent that I used to try to create my own. I died in a whaling accident in Nova Scotia. What did happen to me? I got old and I very on purpose disappeared from public life. I made wonderful friendships. I had the greatest dog ever. I built a couple homes. I saw a good part of the world. I went to Antarctica, which you don't need to do, probably. I was just doing voiceovers. I was a voiceover guy forever. Even while I was on Blue's Clues, that was my main job. I was a voiceover guy. So I was still talking to you. I was just selling you hamburgers and life insurance.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Men's Edition. I think this is our 8th episode. Boy, I should have looked at that beforehand.
We're close.
We're somewhere in there. So this is our 8th Men's Edition episode. And so everybody, welcome aboard. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you like the content you see, do a thumbs up. It helps out the channel a lot. If you don't know about all the YouTube algorithms and stuff like that, that's really the only way that they know to get the videos out there. So we appreciate it.
I can't even spell algorithms.
Yeah. No need to. So, all right. Well, here, you got the Cowboys glass going there.
Yeah, we beat Pittsburgh. How you doing?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I'm very glad that we're talking about the Cowboys while we're doing Men's Edition mental health, because they bring me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah,
a lot of anxiety.
We have talked about this many times. So
pressed most of the season, so that's all right.
So just so you guys know, side note on this is I'm not a real big sports fan, but because Joe's my best friend here and my brother and brother in Christ, I support him and his team. But when they do lose, I do make fun of him also. So that's
which is more often than not. Let's be honest.
So that's how this goes. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So today's episode is going to be a pretty good one.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about Steve Burns. Most of you know, people our age, kids that are younger, will know him or remember him by the show he was in, Blue's Clues. And I remember turning that on for my kids all the time. They used to love that show. I'd sit there sometimes kind of watch it, and it was an interesting show. It was different. Steve Burns was the main character, and he spent most of his time talking to on the show. It looks like he's talking to Blue, which is a little dog, right? But in reality, there was nothing there. He was just talking, acting, right? It ran from like 96 to 2002. That was the year that it ran, that Steve was on it. So a lot of kids and a lot of parents kind of grew up watching him grow up, right? And then he left. All of a sudden, he was gone, right? He introduced, I can't remember who he introduced. Like, it was a cousin or a little brother or somebody, I don't know, that eventually took over, and Steve just had a quick exit, right? And people were just like, what happened to him? Why did he just leave all of a sudden, in 2002? He was nominated for I believe it was an Emmy, a daytime Emmy, for that show. I mean, it was a very wholesome show. You know how most shows they start talking about weird stuff and transgenderism and everything else. That show was
This is before that.
That was before that plague, right? And there was an interview with him by People Magazine in 2002, right shortly after that. And people did not know this, but he was battling depression. He had some serious mental health issues that he was dealing with, and that show really just kind of built up even more. And so he departed, and he had to like kind of just fix himself. And it's weird because this is something that I think people remember that was shared by one great actor and comedian, Robin Williams, where he said that some of the funniest people in your life are suffering or are battling some of the hardest conditions and demons in their life, and that's an outlet, being funny or sticking out in public or entertaining people is an outlet for a lot of people that deal with depression or other mental health issues. And Steve Burns was one of those people, and he brought a lot of joy to children, and that was his thing. He really loved them. And I think that it ultimately got to him where he couldn't function as an actor. He couldn't function as Blue's Clues. And he felt like his issues with depression caused an effect on the show. And he felt it was time to leave. Like,
Right.
It's not what it used to be, and it's causing probably more problems than it should. And I think that says a lot about an individual. A lot of people just kind of go through it without facing the fact that they have mental health issues or battling mental health issues, or that it's impacting what they're doing. Right. And so I think that's important that people know that, that that when you have these crises, when you're battling them, they shouldn't wait for the last minute to like, all right, I got to pay attention to it, right? The moment that it's happening, the moment that you feel like you're not there, like you're not yourself, you have to address those issues, and people have to take note. And that's the thing, people like that were in charge of that show, that were in the cast or behind the scenes, noticed some things with him, but no one really called him on it. And that was the thing. No one really calls you on it. They're too worried about how they might seem, like if you're asking a question like, hey, how you doing today? And people are afraid to do that. I don't understand. I personally don't understand why that is. Like, I would love for someone to say, like, if you just out of the blue, what you do, come like, hey, how you doing today? You doing all right? I mean, how long does that take to ask somebody?
It's really quick.
Right.
It's really quick.
Sometimes that's all you need, right? Yeah. Just someone to know that you have someone that you could at least talk to, or that someone cares enough to ask if you're okay. And that's the horrible thing about it, that we're so focused inward in our own selves and our own lives that we forget about the people around us, people that we supposedly love, but we just kind of forget about them. And that's I think a very hard thing to deal with, especially if something happens.
It is, yeah. And one of the things, like, not devil's advocate, but kind of the flip side to that is that, working in the public realm, you sometimes have folks that will come up to you and they start spilling their guts to you and I hate to sound, where it's not that I don't care, but, they just start telling you all this stuff about people you have no clue about or what have you, and they're a perfect stranger to you. And then they start telling you about their family and their family's friends and strangers that are even farther removed from, your situation. And imagine people that work like in doctor's offices and things like like this, and they come home and they're like, I don't want to hear it from my family now. I've heard it all day, and these are the things that I think that does impact people, where they kind of recluse, right? They say, I don't want to hear anything from anybody, and one of the things that, I've been doing a Bible study class every Wednesday night. And one of the things that we do is at the end of the class is we pass around a little notepad, and everybody writes down people that they want to pray for, or, everybody to pray for them or think about them or what have you. And it's really nice.
I hope my name's been put on there a couple of times.
I can't tell you. It's a secret. You got to know the handshake.
Oh man.
You got to know the handshake and the password, and it's not French poodle, just so you know. Okay. So, but yeah, it's really nice. And, those are some of the things that it helps us to remember, man, we have to remember people, and we have to think about people. And, I have tried to get into the habit lately. And we've all had this happen, and it's a really weird occurrence when this happens. And if you've had it happen, comment down below. But where you all of a sudden you think about something, you have somebody you haven't thought about in months, possibly years, right? And you start thinking about them, and you're like, gosh, I wonder what they're doing. And you're thinking and thinking and thinking about them. And then all of a sudden they call you, or something weird happens that pops up, that's a similarity between you two, or something that you've experienced around them, or what have you. And so what I've been trying to do is, whenever these folks, I would think about them, I try to text them, or give them a call.
Yeah.
Depending on if it's somebody from far enough back, I text them, because it may not even be their phone number anymore. But
had that happen.
Yeah, I think I told you about the one friend of mine that I texted a while back, and he gave me a bunch of info on stuff that was happening in his life. And we actually got on the phone, and I haven't talked to him since 2018, and it's 2024, so mid to late 2024 before I talked to him. And again, this is one of those things that just popped in my head. I call him, and he tells me, like, a month prior to the day I called him, all kinds of stuff went crazy go nuts in his life, right? And what's the chances of that, right? So, God's tapping you on the shoulder and telling you to, hey, talk to this person, reach out to him. There's a reason that you think about these people. It's not just haphazard in your life, right? It's something that you really, and again, like you and I, we text every day, every other day, or, we don't go more than like 4 to 5 days, right?
Yeah.
That we don't, hey, what's up, man? Even if it's just a short comment back and forth. And I think we're more at front of mind with that. You have people that are a little farther removed from you, and then people that are way more farther removed from you. I've got who he is. I got a good buddy over in Tennessee, and as soon as those hurricanes and stuff came through this last week or so ago, man, the first thing I thought of was, dude, I hope he's okay. So I text him, and it didn't actually hit the area he was in, but still, it's those. And he's somebody else I don't talk to all the time, but when we do, it's like I just pick right back up, like we were never apart, kind of thing. And
and that's the thing, that there's a plan for everyone. God has a plan for everyone, right? We all have a purpose here, and it's funny because like you, I had, and this is weird because I had an ex get a hold of me one time, and she's calling how I'm doing, blah blah, and it turns out that they were just having issues with their.
You sure it was a she?
That's irrelevant.
That's irrelevant. How they identify is their business.
Is their business. But they were having like relationship issues, and I was telling them, some of the things that they need to address, and blah blah blah, and I even was so encouraged to just even apologize for my actions during our relationship,
right?
Like to give some calm over something. Some people just need to hear something, whether it's their fault or your fault, or it doesn't really matter. But to know, like, the worst thing is you leave a relationship and not knowing what happened. It's a horrible feeling, because you don't know if, like, did you cause it? Did they cause it? Was it something you did, something you said? And you want to give someone that peace of mind. And I know that breakups or relationships are a little bit different, because a lot of times people end up being, having an animosity toward each other, even hating each other. But that shouldn't be the case. We should always find a way to have a peaceful resolution, amicable kind of separation, to where
amicable. Dang.
Bro, I've been reading the thesaurus and Webster's dictionary. So, and anyway, stop interrupting me. But anyway, I think it's important that people start learning how to talk to each other. Man, we've been so disconnected with today's generation of social media platforms, online dating, just everything being so disconnected from that individual, from a person. It's no surprise that we're having so much mental health issues, so much depression. People are isolated from each other. Like, it's ridiculous. It started with COVID and it's just expanded from there. People just gotten used to it. And I think that's the worst thing when you don't have human interaction, and then going back a little bit to that relationship, when you have a relationship and you guys just end and it's a horrible ending, there's questions that need to be answered. There's feelings that need to be addressed. There's just so many things. And, could anyone really be that hardcore where there's like, what it's, and no one wants to hear that cliche of endings. Like, it's really more me than you is, it's all, you're like, bro,
that's all my fault. It's
all my fault.
It wasn't you.
This hurts me more than it hurts you. Look, get over all that. Let's just be honest with each other, because, at the end of the day, someone wants to hear just a little bit of honesty, whether it's a little bit hurtful or not, just some honesty, because that's how could people change? How could people redirect their path? How could they address anything that's going on if it's not brought to light? So I think depression is a horrible thing that's really impacting society today, especially here in America. And that we don't address it. Like, why don't we talk about it? Why isn't this being talked about more? Why aren't we like talking about it in school? Why isn't there posters up? We've been isolated for years now. COVID, 2 years almost of COVID. People locked down, not interacting, children growing up, watching TV, watching TikToks, watching, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else. And even some really edgy stuff out there. There's no surprise kids are doing the things they're doing nowadays. They're so disconnected from family, so disconnected from each other. Relationships, they're weird. I don't know if you ever like seen kids courting each other. It's just weird, bro. It's just weird.
Courting?
Man, that's expensive Webster dictionary. I'm reading it.
No, I'm just I can't imagine kids now courting one another.
Well, we say courting because that's what when those first steps, when you're getting to know somebody. Ours was bad with the little note. You want to date me? Yes or no boxes. You know what I mean? And a little maybe box sometimes.
Yep.
Good thing that girls were nice enough to do the maybe, even though they'll never date you. At least you're like, yeah. Most kids were okay with that. Like, I wasn't even going to ask her. But it's nowadays it's just weird, bro. I don't understand it. But mental health was a serious thing. And going back to Steve Burns struggled to maintain a positive attitude while he was doing the program. It was sad because despite appearing so happy on TV, he was battling disparity behind the scenes. Like, could you imagine how difficult that is for somebody? Like we're so vocal, you and I, right? And because of the years of the friendship we have, we've been more and more open with each other, and we're able to communicate much better. But could you imagine someone who's just a single kid or who's grown up he's doing a show in an imaginary world where he's not talking to nobody but just like a stick. They're like, hey, this is where the Blues, the dog's going to be. And hey,
right.
I mean, and
it does have to be weird.
It really does. And you're trying to maintain this, and you already have some type of depression. Right. And then this just brings you out more. Like, I'm running a show and my friends are imaginary friends and I'm talking to a stick. Right.
Yeah.
And how is that addressing his issues? And the sad thing is that it came to an end in 2002 because he could not deal with it anymore, which I am so proud of Steve Burns, because he took a better path. Most people suffering from this choose to end it in a horrible way that only brings more pain to people around them. But he took a higher road, and he clearly made a decision to leave that and address his mental health issues, which were very important. He viewed himself as a micro celebrity. He got popular really quick, and when your audience are a bunch of kids and that duration that it lasted, came out in 96 to 2002. Can you imagine just all these kids growing up? They grew up around you. Now they're like kind of like your kids, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he did a lot.
He's like, how old is he now? He's 50.
I think so. I think so. But he's done a lot of things, and a lot of people think he's still kind of like, he's kind of weird, but you have to do whatever you have to do to make your mental health right. right? To be able to sustain yourself, to keep pushing forward. I mean, if that means isolate yourself in some mountains, that's what you're doing. You know, if that means kind of minimize your interaction with certain types of people, that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, he found his serenity in going and addressing his mental health care, right? Takes breaks for his mental health. Like, he's like, you know what? I've been doing all this. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to focus on me and my mental health. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? He actually did move to Catskill Mountains. He's isolated up there because that's what he likes to do. He think about it. His show was about imaginary things. Now he's isolated by himself and he's focusing solely on himself. He's improved himself. He resides in a serene setting. Like, how, I don't know if you ever, I don't even know where the Catskill are mountain, but I've seen some background where he's at and they look beautiful, you know? And I just imagine being in that kind of setting. And it's beautiful. So now, right, after he's addressed all these problems for himself, after he's at a place where he is stable, where he's found himself, where he knows what he needs for his mental health, what is he doing? He's back helping people.
Yeah.
Right. And almost in the same type of way that he did on his show. So on his show, Blue's Clues, I don't know if you ever saw it, but in his show Blue's Clues, he'd look into the TV, into the camera, and, like, you know, ask questions to the audience, and then he'd like pretend like they're responding, and he would react to that, and you know, right. it was kind of cool.
Because he had the, obviously Blue was the dog that was, but he had like was it like a dresser or something like that? Like it was a chest kind of thing, and he had a bunch of like little characters, and like you say, when they're filming it, there's nothing there because it's all all green screened, and then they add that stuff in.
And my kids love that. They watch that show. I'm like, man, they're just as crazy as that guy. You know what I mean? It was a very good show. It was a wholesome show. Again, there was none of that weird stuff going on with transgenderism and things like that, right? There was no cross-dressers in there pretending to be something else.
Right. Well, they weren't trying to indoctrinate children.
It was just a wholesome show.
They were trying to let children grow up with their own imagination, which we all have as we're growing up, and not trying to say, this is the way. Maybe there's something wrong with you kids. So you're not what you think you are.
Yeah.
You know, that's the dangerous part, all that stuff.
You're absolutely correct. And so now that he's kind of where he feels comfortable, where he needs to be. Now he knows what to do to take breaks into self-care. Now he does in the same kind of way that he did Blue's Clues. He's back in the generation that he raised, and which now have taken over social media. And he does this weird, it's only weird. It's not weird. It's actually fabulous. He'll get on. So he's looking at his phone, right at the camera, on social media. This is what he does. He records it. And he'll be like, hey, it's been a while. How are you doing? And then he'll stop talking. It'll just be blank. And he'll do that for a long time. And then he was like, well, it was really good seeing you again. You know, have a nice day, you know, and I'll be here, whatever. And then, so that's not the best part of it. I get it. That's great. I mean, like, think about it, Jay. Think about it. You're at home, you're depressed, you got nothing to go to, you're going through social media, and here's Burns from Blue's Clues says, hey, how are you doing today? Takes you right back to that memory of his child when he was talking to you on TV, because you felt like he was talking to you one-on-one, you know?
Yeah.
And he's doing it again. Bro, I'm not going to lie, man. It almost brought tears to me, the responses on messages people left. You know, hey, Steve, thank you for asking. I've been sober 20 years, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or like, you know, hey, I'm glad I saw this because, you know, lately I've been very depressed and thank you for asking. Oh my God, tear jerking responses from people, bro. And just, I want you to put it up so they could see that. And it's.
Hello. What's going on? How are you? What's new?
Cool. I just wanted to check in. You look great.
Oh my God. It broke my heart. And I'm thinking, man, you know, it's great to see someone who suffered from depression, from clinical depression, right? To come back and help so many people
Oh yeah.
by just simplest form. Simplest form.
There was one of them that said something to the effect, I'm not saying verbatim, but said something to the effect of, I'm still here, Steve. I didn't end it all.
Damn.
Yeah.
That hurt, bro. That's,
I know. Man, that
gives me
like
chills.
hits you, you know, to think that there's people out there, think about this, that Steve Burns, just him, right, getting on a video and say, hey, how have you been? Are you okay? Like, I've missed you.
Yeah.
That's all he does. Those people know darn well that they're not talking to him and all that, but that's all it took was a little something from someone that they have a little bit of a connection, a little bit of a spark with, and it changed their entire outlook for the day.
Yeah.
And it's one of those big things, you know, we've talked about before about like bullying and stuff like that, you know, and when we were kids, there was bullying. I mean, you got beat up by people, and you know,
There wasn't
folks
there wasn't bullying. There was just straight up butt whooping.
butt whooping. Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. So you had to fend for yourself. There isn't that so much going on now. There's this constant need for attention, right, from everybody, and we've gotten that. So when we were kids, our parents had us doing chores and tasks and things like that, and that was like our connection with them, right?
Yeah.
And whether your parent hugged you a lot, didn't hug you a lot, said I love you, never said I love you, we had still some kind of connection there. Now, what's one of the first things as kids are growing up? What do they do to the kid when they go to the grocery store? They throw a tablet in their face, right? And say, play with this, don't bug me, you know? So these kids, just like adults do, adults can't go 5 minutes without touching their phone or without, you know, if the phone goes, you have to immediately get to it. You can't wait 10 minutes to get to it, because if you do, you know, you're going to start freaking out and everything. So we've raised kids with that kind of thing, that, you know, endorphin rush or whatever you want to call it. And they constantly need that now. So when any of that stops, it's like a little depressive moment that they go off a cliff, right? And us as adults, we're getting that way too, because of that constant contact with the world. And it's not always so. I remember back in the day when you had like MySpace. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Before the whole Facebook.
Dude, I love
deal.
MySpace. You used to be able to put music on your whatever.
So we need to bring that back, man.
Yeah.
We need to talk to Tom and see if we can get it back. But
Whatever Tom
when
does.
when Facebook came on, it was basically an extension of that. It was just different and everything. And everybody got it because what did they do? They kept in contact with old school friends, current friends, family that was far away. But what really started with that was you started having all these friends that you don't know who they are. And, you know, it was like this challenge to get the most friends. So you had all these teenagers that had 10,000 friends on Facebook. 10,000 friends. Dude, I don't think I've met 10,000 people in my lifetime, right?
I barely like 3 people. I don't even know how
yeah, and I definitely don't like that many people. So now, you know, fast forward to the TikTok and gosh, everything else that's out there, and the amount of followers and stuff. Obviously, things have changed because there's a monetary value connected to that for some of these youngsters that are really getting into it. But imagine the average high school kid or college person, or even somebody that's in their 30s or 40s, right? That they rely on that constant feedback all the time. And when they don't get it, then they don't have that human interaction anymore. You know, they were work from home parents or whatever, you know, this it's really changed the dynamic of our mental health now. And I think Steve coming back online and just being that, he's that familiar sight and sound to a lot of people, because almost everybody, and I know
that
you saw a
voice.
lot of, yeah, and his voice, he's
Recognizable.
very, very calm, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And he, the people that have commented on his little interactions, I mean, a lot of them are saying, I watched you, you know, X amount of years ago.
Yeah.
Because gosh, it's been more than 20 years ago since he was on, right? Because he left in
2002.
so 22 years plus
Yeah.
ago. You know, so people that are in their, that aren't even 20 yet, they didn't even experience him. They're not old enough to have experienced him. So so you got a lot of people that are, you know, really, I think, excited to have Steve back on. And there was a lot of things going on, because there were some stories about some different folks that have put videos online and then passed away, and they knew they were, you know, had terminal illnesses and things like that. And so there's a lot of rumors that were going around that Steve was either terminally ill or he got in an accident or something like that, and none of that stuff was true. So
Well, because
he got on and debunked it, you know.
Well, you could imagine just all of a sudden having an exit after having a successful run, having a great and still was successful, and then just leaving the show, you know.
Yeah.
And no one can understand that. And so, of course, all these things are, you know, social media did what social media does best, and that's what it did. But you know, you guys, that little piece right there that Jay put up there, and if it was going too fast, stop and read some of those things on there, man. They're really tear jerkers. Some of these, man. I was like, oh, it's crazy. But just a side note before I forget, if you or someone you know needs mental health support, is consider reaching out to a professional. There is a crisis text line. I've just found out about. All you do is text strength to 741-741, and then they'll get back right to you on text. That's what people do nowadays. They do texting a lot. So this is a perfect thing. Have it on your phone. You never know when you might need it. Again, you're going to text strength to 741-741. So I just want to mention that before we forget about that. But
yeah, definitely use those resources that are out there. And you know, if it's somebody that's out in the streets or something like that, that's a great one to use. If you need specialized help or what have you, you can get online, whatever your favorite window is, whether it's Google or, you know, Firefox, or I don't know what everybody uses, Chrome, whatever everybody uses. Yeah, you can just Google something, and you know, depending on what it is, and there's all kinds of help out there for all kinds of things. And we'll put some of them down below in the description so you guys can.
But I think
easy reference to it.
You guys don't follow Steve Burns. Follow him. I think it's great he's doing. I think it's helping a lot of people. He's that, you know, a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking to other people or having someone in front of them, because again, we've been so isolated for years that people fear that live interaction with another human being, that they resort to things like this. But you know what, if that works for them, great. If that's, you know, one human life saved from tragedy, great. You know, I'm all for it. But I think he's doing what he knows to do best. I mean, it worked for him. And again, that just goes to prove to everyone out there, it's just as simple as asking somebody, how are you doing today? You know, what can I do for you? You know, that's simple to turn someone's life around. Yeah. But we are so busy looking inward, focusing on ourselves, that we don't have that moment to just check up on a loved one, even someone on the street, man. You know what's so sad nowadays, Jay, is that there could be someone going through a crisis in the middle of the road on the sidewalk. And what do people do? They pull out their cell phones and start recording, you know, and that is so depressing to me. You know, I would hate to think that, you know, I'm in the middle of the road suffering from a heart attack and people are just videotaping it and no one's helping me. You know, that How sad could that be? You know what I mean? It's just sad that society has gone this bad. and I think all of us are responsible for that. I think all of us need to turn that page and start doing things for each other. I think I think these past 8 years, I think we've dealt with enough hatred, enough bigotry, enough racism. And again, I feel it's the media that's spreading all this stuff,
Absolutely.
and that none of that really exists unless you just keep bringing it to light and people start feeling a certain way about it and become that bigot or that racist, so we have to change that. And I think Burns is onto something great in his own little world. And if you look at how many people respond, his little world is not that little, right? And people are connecting to him, and that's important. So if he could do it, can you imagine what you could do within your own family or within your own circle of friends? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Jay? I mean, am I off here? Do you see that disconnect? I do.
I see a big disconnect. And I think one of the things that really has helped people with the, going back to the Steve Burns thing is so you'll see a comment and imagine somebody that themselves is depressed, needs help, what have you, and they are reading these comments of people saying, and some of the things start to get into pretty dark areas of life, right? And imagine you're this person and you think that, your life is at the worst point, or because, everybody's worst point is relative to them with what you're going through.
Yeah.
And whatever you're thinking of, and you read a couple of these comments and a couple of them hit you really hard, right? So these things have really helped a lot of folks. And that's why I think it's become so popular and it's become such a, like a viral thing out there, because, it's not just what Steve's done, but what he's done to capture all these folks and get them to all be at one platform and all say, we all feel the same way.
Yeah.
We all feel it differently, but different in the same fashion. Right. So it's, no matter what you're going through, there's somebody else out there that's going through not the same thing necessarily, could be the same thing, but it's different to each individual because we all take things differently. Right. So, I mean, one person breaks something, another person breaks something, they're going to handle that completely different. I mean, right now you've got people that are literally homeless on the East Coast right now because of our failed government and everything else. And,
Continued failed government.
Yeah, continued failed government. And I would say anything that I'm personally going through right now is minuscule in comparison to what those people are going through. However, folks are going through stuff that is, and I don't make light of this, but it's life ending to them, right? They feel like they're at the end of their ropes, and none of us can judge somebody based on how they feel about a situation. Yeah, maybe to you and I, we're like, I'd wipe that off. No big deal. To somebody else, that's really, a killer situation for them. So,
but we have to realize though, Jay, that I can't even speak English now. In the economy that we're living today, you have to stretch very little into a lot. Yeah. Right. So now you have this devastating that comes in and just destroys everything you have. It could be a single bedroom home that was passed down to you, but that's all you had. And to us, they're like, we go buy, you get some money, hey, you got $750 the government gave you. It could not be a big deal, right? To some people, especially living in areas that are not impacted by any kind of inclement weather, right? It's easy for them to say, but if to that person, that's their life, that's their world, that covers everything, that housed their family, that was important to them. And I think that's the problem, that we always try to interject ourselves in those situations, like, get over that. Yeah, well, it's not you. It's not about you. It's about that person. Right. It's about what they're feeling, not what you're feeling or how you handle it. It's how they handle it. And that's where we have that disconnect. That's where we're separated ourselves from reality, I feel. Like it's very sad. And again, going back to Steve Burns and the comments that are put on there, it's not even like, some of these things aren't even like a desperate thing. It's more like someone's just listening, the example I gave, like, hey, I've been sober 5 years, like, just ask someone how their sobriety is going that had a
Yeah.
problem. Or you know what? Don't be a jerk like my dad was, and don't go drinking beer inside an AA meeting. You know what I mean? Do ask them, hey, how's your? If you
Yeah.
know they had a problem, then don't drink around them. If you
Right.
know they're going through AA, how's your sobriety going? Do you need anything? How hard is that? I mean, how hard is it to care for another human that's not yourself?
Not difficult.
But
Not difficult.
yet, here we are
Here we
talking
are.
about it because clearly it's difficult for somebody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know that I don't got nothing else to say about that. I just think that we're beating a dead horse. We need to stop. We need to wake up. We need to start doing things that's right. We need to fix our own society, and it starts from the outward, not inward, outward, right? We stop focusing on ourselves and we start doing things for people. I think that's where things start changing. Like, instead of like always being so selfish, I'm like, what do I need to do? Man, be thankful. Thank God that you woke up, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing to be thankful for.
You have food on the table, whether it's a sandwich or toast or whatever. You have food, right? Because if you think that you're having a hard time, go down to Jefferson, downtown Phoenix, and go see what a hard time is.
Yeah.
Right? No pity for people that have self-pity. Learn the reality of things. There's something more important than just yourself, and we have to start looking at that. And I think that it takes one person. Can you imagine if just one person listening to this podcast goes out there and makes that one difference, then go to the next one? It just expands, man. And we're having such a hard time doing it. We're just so full of pride. Y'all need Jesus.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining us today for our men's edition, our 8th episode here. And thank you to Steve Burns for the men's edition. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how many episodes we have of everything else. We've got a lot. But thanks again to, shout out to Steve Burns for
You're the man.
What he's doing. He's making a difference out there. And, and as we can all see, it doesn't take a whole lot to make a difference. And Joe and I, with these episodes, that's what we're trying to do. Like Joe said earlier, if we can help one person, it will have made it all worth it. So there's some numbers down below and all that. So, use any of those if you need help. And, if you know somebody that does need help, slide them a piece of paper with a number written on it, and do whatever you can. Yeah. Yeah. Or your number or email or what have you, so there's a lot of folks that need help out there. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that kind of good stuff. And you all have a blessed week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
We'll see you. Have a good one.